Previously, we covered the core foundations. Now, in Part 4, we tackle the forgotten jobs that made Apollo 11 fly. Part 4, the men who cleared the sea, and the forgotten jobs that made Apollo 11 fly. Part 4, the men who cleared the sea. Hook. In Part 3, we looked at the range safety officers on the ground, the people with their hands on the destruct command, ready to destroy a Saturn V if it went wrong over land. But before any of that responsibility kicked in, someone had to make sure the ocean ahead of the rocket was clear. That is what this episode is about. Intro. The Eastern Test Range stretched roughly 10,000 miles downrange from Cape Kennedy, out across the Atlantic and beyond. Every launch sent a rocket, and potentially its debris, over that corridor. And that corridor was not empty. It had ships in it. It had aircraft crossing it. It had fishermen who did not know or care about launch schedules. The question this episode asks is a practical one. How do you legally and logistically clear an ocean before you light that rocket? Section 1. The corridor and the danger zones. The range safety team defined specific hazard areas along the expected flight path, zones where debris could realistically fall if the vehicle broke apart at different points in its ascent. These were not vague approximations. They were calculated impact dispersion areas, updated for each mission, based on the trajectory, the vehicle's mass, and the altitude at which a breakup might occur. Each zone had to be surveyed and confirmed clear within a defined window before launch. That window closed at T0, not approximately at T0, exactly at T0. Section 2. NOTAM, Officers and the Formal Warning System. Two parallel warning systems ran ahead of every launch. For aviation, aeronautical NOTAM officers, Notice to Airmen officers, issued formal warnings through the standard international system. These defined restricted airspace volumes, altitudes, and the precise times during which no civilian aircraft was permitted in those areas. For shipping, maritime NOTAM officers issued equivalent notices to mariners through the U.S. Coast Guard and international maritime notification channels. These specified danger zones on the surface of the Atlantic, areas where vessels had to be absent, or in some cases, were required to hold position and await an all clear. These were not advisory suggestions. They carried legal force. A vessel or aircraft inside a declared zone during a launch window was in violation, and the range could not proceed until compliance was confirmed. Section 3. The radar picket vessels. Beyond the paperwork, there were ships physically positioned downrange. Radar picket vessels, some operated by the U.S. Navy, some by the range itself, sat at intervals along the corridor. Their job was twofold: to provide radar tracking coverage in areas where ground-based stations had no reach, and to confirm that the sea around them was clear of unannounced traffic. If a stray vessel appeared inside a danger zone close to launch time, these ships could report it directly to range control. Launch could be held. The window could be extended or scrubbed. This was the last physical check before the countdown continued. A closer. On the 16th of July 1969, the corridor was clear. Every NOTAM had been issued. Every zone had been confirmed. The picket vessels reported no contacts. Range safety never had to act, because the men who cleared the sea had done their job thoroughly and quietly before anyone else's job began. Next episode, Part 5 explores the next key question in this series, another role that made Apollo 11 fly, and that almost nobody remembers. Subscribe CTA. If this series is useful to you, subscribing is the best way to follow it through to the end. See you in Part 5. That is Part 4 of the forgotten jobs that made Apollo 11 fly. In Part 5, we explore the next key question. Subscribe so you do not miss it.